Hi, it's Thea. So if you've come back this time, I hope by now you've subscribed and you've joined our Facebook group if it would be of service for you to do that, and that you are still here to talk to us about life and some of the challenging decisions. So as I talk about surviving suicide, and I've talked about how astrology is a piece of that, or has been in my life, what I've learned, I said I wanted to talk about some of the significant age cycles. So I covered pretty much the 14, 15 group, the 28 to 30 group, and then there's this part that comes along around 39, 40, 41, 42, and it's multiple planet impacts. So you have like a 7-year cycle at 42 for Saturn. Then you have a Neptune is 168 years it takes to go around the sun. So you divide that by 4 and you have a 42 the same time. And then you have a Uranus opposite. Uranus takes 84 years to go round the planet, the sun. And so that opposite, direct opposite, is around 42. Now, they're not exact dates, times, because planets have an energetic pole. Starts before exact, lands after. The other thing about these slower moving planets, they'll roll several times. Like when my Pluto decided to run over my ascendant, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And through it was forever. It was like 5 rolls. It's challenging because the lessons are big, but the rewards can also be very fulfilling. Okay, so let's talk about what happens. We know that in general terms, when people get around 40 years old, they start thinking about, is this all there is? Or what do I do now? Or something needs to change? Or what is my knowledge base? And I stand here by this good friend of mine here, Mr. Owl, about wisdom. We want to turn knowledge into wisdom. And we might not know that's what's happening. We just know that we're feeling this push, this pressure. Now, if again, as I've discussed before, if we're just here on this material plane and see what's in front of us, it gets very, very difficult. And so, what I know I've heard several times, and I've said it myself, if we don't make changes when they're pushed, when we're being pushed towards them or accept those opportunities, things will just keep being the way they always have been. A therapist many years ago said to me, if you keep doing what you always did, you'll keep getting what you always got. And that tends to live true, except that I think there's another piece of that. It gets worse, I think. It gets harder, more challenging, because we missed that opportunity. So many times when I'm talking to people that are in their early 40s and they're struggling and they're trying to find that peace and they're like, okay, where's my Uranus and what area of my life is it in and how can I take this opportunity and embrace it? And, it's like, okay, let's look at that. Let's do that and see what we can find out for you. However, there are people who are like, I don't get it. I don't want to do it. Sometimes it's just, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. Well, that's fine. Everybody is unique and makes their own free will and decisions. However, if the changes and shifts don't happen, you might be looking at another 42 years of the same, getting the same thing you always got. And when you look at, okay, this is fine for when I'm 40 or 42, but what's it going to feel like when I'm 64 or when I've moved on past what I need now? And life is a journey, and it doesn't mean that we start and then we stop. It's about growing through that process. And obviously, I'm here talking because I have a belief system that there's something greater than us that influences us, whether it's the planets, which I think are pretty significant, or whether it's something that we believe in that supports us and helps us. So it's important that we know a little bit about what it is that we believe. What is it that we know or feel like supports us, whether it's religious or spirituality or our art or our science or our children, whatever it is that we can have passion about and feel like we're not alone. Now, when I say the children, I don't mean because we should rely on them to be our support system, but they're bringing great things to this planet now that we really need as humans and humanity as a whole. So listening to the children is really important. It can be a big passion. It's one of my passions. So I'm grateful for the children and for those folks who are bringing those children in now, because what they carry based on their planetary influences is remarkable in comparison to what my generation or the generations between us and the one before. It's not different, it's not more special, it's just very unique to this time. And so was all of our generations. And that's a whole nother playlist about the generations and the planetary influences. Let's get back. So I found many stories that I gathered were for people who were somewhere between 40 and 43 that had either committed suicide and left the planet of their own accord. I was able to look at some of those charts, and or something violent happened for them, something that was beyond their control, that yes, they did transition, maybe not at their own hand, but at someone else's, or some tragic, because there's that period of time that we're either going to need to make that shift or it's a transformation. And leaving the planet, dying, is a form of it's like the ultimate transformation, depending on what you believe. So it's not for me to say, or for anyone, from my personal opinion, to say whether they're supposed to stay or not. I do believe there are situations and instances where leaving the planet, even of one's own hand, can be the relief that's needed for that soul. So I haven't talked a lot about soul level here yet, and that would be a whole nother topic. Not topic, but the soul's role in suicide attempts or suicide ideation or actual action of suicide. So back to the 40-year-olds. So here we have these starting maybe 39, 40, 41, 42. There's this, if change needs to happen or the pressure gets so intense, we don't know what to do about it. My story at that time was again around love and money. I had left my career. I left the state that I was born and raised in, that I love dearly, and I went across the country following love. And I got there, and things just kind of fell apart. So the business that I had also went under. So it was again about love and money, and I had to make a decision to stay. And I almost didn't that time again. And I can't tell you exactly why I made the decision. I think if I look back now, there was a young boy who I was a surrogate parent to, who was part of my life then and part of my household. And I loved him dearly. I still love him. I hope he's well wherever he is. And I think that the decision was made by me that I can't do this to him. I just couldn't find a better way. But I had again proceeded with the letter and the bullets in the gun and all of this stuff. And in the end, it was like, oh my God, I can't do that to him. And thank you. Thank you to him. He was important enough in my life for me to come out of that. So I will tell you another sad thing that happened at that very time. I managed to get myself to church that morning. I hadn't been to any churches in the area where I was living. And church has been important to me, at least a spiritual practice, since I was very young. And I went to church, and they passed around this thing and said, if anybody wants to talk to somebody or needs to talk to somebody, please put your name and number in here. We'll contact you right away. Well, nobody did. Not ever. Even after I went through that situation, no one contacted. So it's reaching out is not always received. And that can be a very, when you're struggling with things you don't understand yourself, and you feel this intense, it's like being in a vice pressure, and you don't know what to do. And when you can't get a response, or you're too ashamed or embarrassed or afraid, or whatever those words are that are kind of what show up during that moment in time, things that we don't need to be alone. We don't need to do it by ourselves. We don't need to be doing life in that moment, especially on our own. So during that period of time of that Uranus opposite, I had to make shifts. And that's when I became more and more involved with metaphysics and healing practices, and engaging with people who were healers and offered a lot of support to get me through that stage. And I ended up going back to the state where I really love, and reestablishing life and just moving on. So that period of time has lots of different pushes, and depending on what a unique chart says, it depends on whether that's a push for I can't do this anymore. All right, that's enough for this time. I'll be back. Oh, and the trees are throwing things at us. Bye bye.